Hello, my name is Caitlin, and I'm here in my art studio where I primarily work with silver clay. I receive a lot of questions about safety, and so although it's important to me to talk about this and I touch on it here and there, I wanted to put a couple important tips in one place. So first, I'm going to talk about respiratory safety. We want to make sure that we're not breathing silver clay. This mainly comes into play when you are sanding or polishing. So there are a couple things that I do here in the studio while I am either polishing by hand or around the corner in a workshop where I do my rotary power tool polishing. I have a small HEPA filter. It works on micro USB. Whenever I'm sanding using something like this or a sanding stick or anything that's generating dust here in the studio, I have this on. And I'm also going to be wearing an N95 dust mask. These need to be properly fitted to be effective. Also be aware that if you have facial hair, then the seal that these create might not be tight. I'm going to use these two things in tandem. Another precaution that I sometimes take is to wet my sanding pad so that when I'm sanding my greenware clay, unfired clay, it's creating a paste instead of generating dust. Another time that I want us to be cautious about our lungs is if you're using chemicals inside. There are precautions to take for each different chemical, and of course, you need to know that as you're using them. Please read any safety information that comes with chemicals you're using. For example, I used liver of sulfur to darken silver. 98% of the time, I'm using hot water, and liver of sulfur in hot water creates toxic fumes if it's over or near the boiling point, so I do that outside. However, sometimes I will use liver of sulfur in the studio with cool water, and just because of the nature of what I'm using, I still want to ventilate, and that's a time when I would use a fan. While liver of sulfur in cool water is not toxic, I just am very cautious about what I'm inhaling, and so I would want some kind of fan in my window to move the fumes outside. If we're soldering or doing anything else that's more serious, you're going to need a respirator, and I'm not touching on that in this video. This is really in my studio for cool baths, liver of sulfur. Another time I would want to ventilate is when I'm firing my silver clay. Sometimes I will torch fire in the studio, and if that's the case, I will put this box fan in the window. If I'm running my kiln, which is in a different room, I will run this fan from the time of turning the kiln on until the kiln reaches temperature. Because it's as the kiln reaches about 1200 degrees Fahrenheit that binder is going to burn off, and by the time the kiln is at full temperature, there's no longer binder, and the silver particles are sintering, and at that time having the fan running is optional. If I am going to be torch firing or kiln firing copper, which I recently shared a little bit here about my experimentations with firing copper through torch, I want to be very careful. It's my understanding that that's more serious than firing silver clay, and I would want to ventilate through the entire torching or kiln firing process. Now let's talk about skin safety. Some people do absorb silver clay through their skin over long exposures. I have a personal theory that I've not seen anywhere else and is only from anecdotal experience and observation that people who have particular kinds of skin types, like low collagen, like EDS, if you know, you know, might be more susceptible to absorbing the silver in our skin, and that can show up as small dark spots in the skin. So in order to prevent that, and in general, even if what I just said doesn't apply to you and your body type, it's important to wash the metal clay off your hands. So I take breaks to actually wash my hands, but I also, as I sit here, use wipes to clean my fingers. Water wipes is my chosen brand only because they have really nothing else in them besides water, and they don't shed so much. Also, I find it difficult to do some of the fine sculpting I do while wearing finger protection, such as gloves or finger cuts. These funny little gloves that are just for one finger or the 3 fingers that you might be sculpting with. I do wear these sometimes. It depends on what I'm doing. For some things I feel like I really just can't have the fine motor work that I want to achieve while I'm wearing gloves. But I do avoid, and I recommend that you avoid long exposure of having a lot of silver clay on your fingers. So keep those things in mind, and it's a very safe medium to work with.